When is a brand back? Breitling have been around since 1884. They never went out of business. They've been on the top 50 list of Swiss watch brands forever. They're one of the most recognizable brands in the world. But for the last 10-15 years, they just haven't been talked about that much. I asked one of those AI agents to trawl through the internet and dig up mentions of Breitling compared to brands like Rolex, Tudor, IWC, and a whole lot of others. And despite Breitling's size and heritage, their share of the conversation has just been smaller. In the early 2000s, I had a brief love affair with everything Breitling, oversized chronomats, giant blingy navel timers, and collaborations with Bentley. But since then, I lost interest, as did a lot of other people. I felt their product was dull, too shiny, and they just didn't resonate with me. Trawling the internet again, I got the impression that the enthusiast community also didn't rate Breitling as much either. To me and a lot of people, it felt like a consumer brand more than an enthusiast brand. I'd even argue that in some ways, they almost felt like a fashion brand to some people, until now. I'm paying attention again, and a lot of others seem to be as well. And in the simplest terms, it's about products that we like versus products that we don't. But there's more to it than that. Let's dive in. History lesson first. Breitling has been around since 1884. In 1908, they built a pocket watch that was used to measure speeding, and they were instrumental in handing out one of the world's first speeding tickets. From a very early stage, chronographs and development of different chronograph technologies was one of their claims to fame. Just like seemingly everybody else, they also got into the whole building something for the military around the World War II years. This led to the first chronomat with the circular slide rule that we now know from the Navitimer. One of their most recognizable designs is the Navitimer, which saw light of day in 1952. In 1951, the AV pilot's watch made their debut. In 1957, Breitling also got into the whole diving craze with the Super Ocean. And just like other brands, they also got the opportunity to send a watch into space. The Top Time came out in 1964. The 70s and 80s feel a little bit more meh to me for Breitling, but in 1986, they revived the Navitimer. In 1995, they released a watch that I was fascinated by at the time. The Breitling Emergency. It was a huge brick of a watch with a crown that not even Casio with their wildest G-Shocks have ever been able to outdo. The early 2000s were all about big watches with everybody following in the wake of Panerai. Breitling for Bentley was probably Breitling's personal hideous contribution to the trend, and unsurprisingly, for yet another time in their history, Breitling needed a bailout. In 2017, private equity, who never, ever screw things up, stepped in and took control of Breitling, putting George Kern at the head. One thing that's a ton better than private equity is my YouTube channel. At least I hope you think so. And if you're new here, do consider subscribing and leaving a thumbs up. It's hugely appreciated. Thanks. Private equity. I realized something when I read this on Breitling's site. Casual, approachable, sustainable neo-luxury. They called themselves a generalist brand. Breitling expanded beyond its aviation-focused strategy to embrace its three historic universes, air, land, and sea, redefining itself as a generalist Swiss brand offering a casual, sustainable, and approachable alternative to traditional luxury.
Are you okay?
I'm fine. I just threw up in my mouth a little bit.
Basically, they did a Bremont. I mean, think about it. A generic air, land, and sea theme. Positioning as a generalist watch brand, neo-luxury, which I think is a euphemism for pretty expensive mid-range product with mass-produced movements. When I read that, I felt vindicated that I hadn't paid attention to Breitling. It's bland, it's generic, it's uninspiring, to me at least. But they are now in the top 10 Swiss brands in terms of volume shipped, and that dull and generic strategy is why. This is private equity at its best. So what did they do, really? They massively cut back on the number of products on offer. The catalog today is significantly smaller than it was in 2016. There are fewer lines, fewer variants, and this did three things. It made everything cheaper because producing variants costs money. It made it easier to focus their design language and build something a little bit more cohesive, and it made it easier for consumers to navigate and choose something nice. Then they went for the middle of the road. They went for the average consumer with the average product with the average design. There's no Kudoke split hour hand dial. There's no Constantine shaken monster dial. There's a decent but not too out there diver. There's a decent but not too out there dress style watch in the chronomat. There's a decent but not too out there G-Shocky kind of outdoor watch. Even the Navitimer was released in a more generic middle-of-the-road version with no slide rule or any kind of freaky stuff. For a lot of people, it's a safe, inoffensive women's watch in the smaller diameter versions. Even the sizing has gone down to the average middle-of-the-road customer expectations. I mean, you can get a 32mm Navitimer. Even the real Navitimer has, in a lot of variants, sacrificed technical legibility for aesthetics. The blue perpetual calendar model is exceptionally good looking, but the colorway isn't exactly one I'd recommend for a pilot using as an actual pilot's watch, as a tool. It's for the average consumer. There are more classic designs with high legibility in there, but I'd wager that it's the aesthetic versions that sell the best. They also used decent, middle-of-the-road, generic, popular celebrities and sports personalities to position themselves. They've got no bad boys or bad girls. There's no Dennis Rodmans here. It's just the kind of stars that your average consumer knows and likes. They kept it simple. They started out with simple movements. They partnered with brands like Kinesi, and for the most part, they didn't commit to any insane cost drivers like a new, fully in-house manual wind, perpetual calendar, moon phase, Rattrapante chronograph. So basically, typical private equity, cost-cutting, and efficiency focus. They did a whole lot of customer service things as well, including digitizing warranties and upgrading their boutiques, all of which is efficient, but also makes it easy to be a customer. And if there's one thing that the average customer wants, it's for things to be easy. And it worked. The average semi-luxury consumer has returned to Breitling. It's just the enthusiast that hasn't. When I walk into my local IWC boutique, the salespeople who do know me by now, that's honestly not a good thing because it says something about my inability to keep my credit card in my pocket. But when I walk in, we end up talking about movements and AR coatings and all that kind of stuff. When I walk into Omega, the salespeople are very quick to talk about movements and specs and details, and sometimes moon landings. And, don't even get me started on JLC. You'll get a speech about enameling and engraving that goes on for hours, but not in a Breitling store. I've never talked movements with Breitling staff. They almost always talk about aesthetics, ease of wear, style. Sometimes they'll talk about ethically sourced diamonds and sustainability, but lever or coaxial escapements, never. And other people have confirmed to me that it's not just me. Breitling store staff, at least in my local stores, don't talk like watch nerds. And for a long time, apart from the Premier line, these watches weren't focused on enthusiasts in any way whatsoever. But something has changed. I think people have started to talk a little bit more about Breitling, and it's down to what I think are some quite simple things. They bought Universal Genève. There's simply just an interest in what Breitling will do with a brand that a lot of die-hard enthusiasts have a lot of love for. So we pay more attention. They also bought Gallet, and that also drives some interest in enthusiast circles. But mostly, they just have more offerings that are hitting the mark with enthusiasts. Initially, the only heritage line they had was the Premier line, but the classic AV is clearly also more heritage focused. So is the Top Time. And with the updates to the Super Ocean Heritage, they're more hitting the mark in terms of what appeals to nerds. Making room in the lineup for more classic tool colorway Navitimers also speaks to the enthusiast. The B31 movement is a big step in getting the attention of enthusiasts. I mean, we go goo goo gaga for new movements, and although it's not in-house, it's a really well-specced and good-looking movement from a collaboration with AMT. Kinesi and Tudor keep their movements behind closed casebacks for a reason. They're just not that good looking. But all of this is coincidental that these things appeal to enthusiasts. Breitling has not in any way started to focus on enthusiasts at all. They're not unhappy with the attention, but I don't really think they care whether or not we are paying attention to them. It's kind of like Rolex. Think of it this way. Would a true enthusiast-focused brand have a digital watch offering? No. That's the Tag Heuer connected space that, snobs like us shun. An enthusiast-focused brand would go much more in-house on movements, but they haven't. They've paired with AMT to make the B31. And why? Because for Breitling, the B31 is not about establishing their watchmaking credentials in terms of movements. It's about making a movement that looks good so the average consumer feels it's more premium. It's about making a movement in a production setup that is cost optimal and doesn't bake capital expenditures too much into the core value of Breitling, because at some point, private equity wants to get rid of Breitling, either as a sale or as an IPO. If Breitling moves even more towards full integration or in-houseness, it won't be because it's to establish themselves as master watchmakers. It's because they have the volumes that make it the cheapest and most effective way to produce what they're producing at the qualities that they want. And then you might say, but the Top Time is so clearly focused on enthusiasts. No? It's coincidental. The Top Time is Breitling's version of the Nomus Club Sport or a color dial Oyster Perpetual. It's capitalizing on a trend that's popular right now. It's the playful, casual dress watch. The key innovation of the new Super Ocean Heritage isn't the nods to the historical design cues. It's multiple sizes, and a styling that speaks to the same customer that wants a no-date Seamaster 300M, a black dial base Submariner, or a black dial, black bezel, black bay 41, 58, or 54. It's just what's popular right now, and Georgie Boy and company have been really good at hitting what is popular for a while. Everything that's resonating with enthusiasts is coincidental. Everything continues to be laser focused on the generic, middle of the road, average, mid-range luxury consumer. In that sense, they're like Rolex and not like Omega. Omega throws out special editions and keeps products in their lineup that are so clearly marketed towards a teeny tiny niche type of customer. They make things that are so limited in reach that it sometimes baffles the mind. But Rolex doesn't. I mean, sure, sometimes an enthusiast will note the significance of which font is used on a dial or some rare color combination. But Rolex gives precisely zero poops about the enthusiast. It's regular rich people that are their demographic. And it's the same for Breitling, just a little less expensive. Now, what does that mean exactly? It means that you shouldn't expect anything that isn't targeted at the generic middle-of-the-road consumer. You shouldn't expect anything out of left field or particularly innovative. You should expect something predictable, inoffensive, and well-made, and priced towards people who are willing to pay between $6,000 and $12,000 for jewelry on the wrist. It also means that I honestly don't think you should expect Universal Genève to be a powerhouse of in-house artisanal skill when they relaunch. They will be spec'd to compete at the premium price they intend to charge. A no-date simple three-hander is reportedly going to cost $15,000. But don't expect it to get tons of hand engraving. Don't expect it to be a fully in-house movement. It will be sourced, or it will be built in collaboration with. They'll have a marquee product here and there, but I'll put my money on them going for the average, middle of the road, really, really rich person. And Gallet? Probably same story. It'll be a more affordable mid-range product aimed at the kind of people that buy a Tudor or Longines or upper-end brands like Christopher Ward. Breitling in their current state seem to be doing quite well. They've climbed up the Morgan Stanley rankings by selling something to the middle-of-the-road customer. That's not a criticism at all. It's just reality. It's a good segment to aim for because there's a lot of us. Their success is a result of, for the most part, ignoring the snobs and the aficionados and the gatekeepers. They just make some watches and package them in a way that a lot of people like. It's not particularly deep. It's not particularly conducive to holding the attention of the biggest nerds. I still don't see a lot of Breitling at watch meets, but it makes money. And I thought long and hard about who I could compare them to, and I kept coming back to a car brand like Toyota. They make good cars. They're not quite priced like Mercedes, but they're not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. They're not a brand that's known for really evoking huge emotion in general. They're just a good upper-end, middle-of-the-road car. That's what they are. And it's not going to change. Right now, this is leading to products that are also getting the attention of us enthusiasts. A Top Time 31 is a really good competitor to an IWC Mark 20 or potentially even an Oyster Perpetual. A Super Ocean Heritage is a relevant alternative to a Seamaster 300M or a slightly cheaper Black Bay Tudor. It's popcorn, it's Monterey Jack, it's not cutting edge, but it's what people like. And that's a good thing. So what are your thoughts? How do you see it? Share in the comments. Like, subscribe. Cheers.